All right, tile friends, today we've got another great discussion lined up for you. I interviewed the current president of the NTCA, Martin Brookes, who has a very successful, award-winning, very profitable and sustainable small tile installation business based out of San Francisco area in California. And we discussed some of the inner workings of the NTCA. As the president of the NTCA, I thought it would be good to hear from him about kind of the inner workings and what's involved in, getting involved. What does one have to do to get involved within the NTCA, and what are those benefits? And we discussed his real life story about his early years as a contractor in the United States, being that he came over from the United Kingdom and how different that was. And he shared some very valuable information for all contractors, and he's very willing to hear from you. I thought this was a great discussion for anyone interested in both giving back to the tile industry in a larger way and the community, as well as reaping the rewards that come from that. Hello, tile friends. Welcome back to another episode of the Tile Money Podcast. My name is Luke Miller, your host, and my mission with this podcast is to strengthen the tile industry. I believe we are doing this, and we can continue to do this with business discussions and education designed for contractors by contractors. This platform, Tile Money, is assisting tile contractors around the world to build sustainable, profitable businesses. The result is a stronger industry from the installer up. Today, we've got another great discussion lined up for you, as you just heard. But before we get to the discussion with Martin Brookes, I want to thank the sponsors of the show. The National Tile Contractors Association can be your most valuable resource as a tile contractor today. And that's what today's show is about, and we're going to hear a lot about that. They are the oldest and largest association for tile contractors in the world, celebrating 75 years next year. And they can certainly point you in the right direction and answer questions that you have, whether they be technical questions or business questions, or you want an introduction to an expert in the field. All right, so check out the NTCA today to see what they can do for your business if you're not already a member. Another sponsor, Laticrete International. Laticrete is one of the leading innovators in the tile installation materials world. They are literally credited with inventing thinset and winning that World Trade Center contract for providing that lightweight solution to build the world's tallest buildings at the time. It is a family-run, privately held company, and the family values, I love their family values. You can feel when you're talking to their reps all the way up to the family members who are still working in the business. Laticrete provides everything you need to install tile, from the waterproofing to the grout and silicone. It's a one-stop manufacturing business. Our third manufacturer sponsor is GoBoard. GoBoard is an innovative tile backer board manufactured by Johns Manville. Discover the possibilities with this easy-to-cut and handle waterproof product. It's very lightweight, it's very durable. You can carry a bunch of boards in one trip with one hand. You can seal those joints and fastener penetrations using GoBoard Pro Sealant, and that will allow you to achieve an ANSI A118.1 compliant installation. GoBoard Pro Sealant is now available in large 20-ounce sausage packs. Ask your distributor to bring them in if they don't already have them. And we all know prep is king. So use GoBoard and prep it up and waterproof it. Get your showers waterproof. Learn more at jm.com/GoBoard. HappyTileGuy.com. I want to give a shout out to my company. I'm a part owner in HappyTileGuy.com. We are building tile contractor websites. That's all we specialize in. They're search engine optimized for lead generation, and that really is your online hub. After people see you on social media, they want to know a little bit more about you, and that is your website. So it still is relevant in this day and age, and we make them very affordable. So check out HappyTileGuy.com if you do not have a website. All right, let's get to the conversation with Martin. I know you're going to enjoy this. So thanks again, Martin, for agreeing to come back on the podcast. So we've done several already, and I'm looking forward to doing more, throughout 2022, and continuing to kind of extract your wisdom and share it with my audience.
Yeah. Anytime, Luke. I mean, it's a pleasure to be on your podcast, and thank you for everything you do for the industry.
Absolutely. It's my pleasure. It's always good, connecting. We were just about 4 weeks ago, we were in Jacksonville together, and it's always good, getting to know you in a different setting, other than the cell phone and the Facebook group, and we can go a little deeper. We didn't get too many chances this time to do that, but we did connect a few times. Can you tell the friends, we don't have to go into, anybody who's listening to this can go listen to your prior podcast to kind of dig into your business, but how did you get started specifically, with the NTCA? What was your story on building your business and getting started?
I started my business in 1996 here in Northern California. Small owner operator, pretty much a pickup truck, a bucket, and a saw. That was it.
Yeah.
And figured I came here to the U.S. in 1993, worked a few companies, worked union, worked non-union, and decided I could do it for myself. So decided to start Heritage Marble and Tile. Like everyone else, working 12, 13 hours a day, loading up with materials at night, trying to do estimates at night, setting off like at 6 o'clock in the morning, just putting in my time, doing the hard work. Fortunate enough to get Gabriel Cortez, who's my lead guy, early on. He's still with me, 25 years in business, and he's been with me all the way. Excellent craftsperson, mechanic, CTI, ACT, just is tremendous. I don't know where I'd actually be without him, because his skill set is much higher than mine as a mechanic, that's for sure.
Congratulations for being able to, hang on to, and this is something I really appreciate about you and speaks volumes. I mean, you've held on to pretty much all of your installers for decades,
And to be quite honest, Luke, we did until COVID hit. We actually have had more turnover in the last year than in 24, 25 years of business. COVID really, I lost a couple of key employees. We've managed to replace them with people who came up as helper and have really stepped up their game and now are installers. And, it's been rewarding for them too, because they moved up in pay scale and, job responsibilities, and it's worked out for them. But COVID is the only time I've actually seen turnover of employees like I've never experienced before. It's like really amazing. But we're through that. We're now back up to 8 employees. Okay. And we've got a stable workforce that's working extremely well. Again, it's like a well-oiled machine. It's working really good. Nice. But, the NTCA involvement for me started when I started to make some mistakes early on in my business. And I saw a flyer at a local tile store about getting involved. And I made that call to Jackson, Mississippi. I spoke to, I think it was Bob Brown back then. And, he was pretty frank with me, telling me the mistakes I was making and how it would be advantageous to me, for the business to join NTCA, which I did, sent my check, got involved. Soon after that, Jim Olson took the position of assistant executive director, reached out to me. We had many conversations, and Jim was really instrumental in bringing me on board and telling me there was a vacancy in Northern California, because the state got split up and Region 11 was now a standalone, and that he felt like, I could do the job as regional director in Northern California. And I was thankful of that. It gave me an opportunity, and it gave me an opportunity to network more and get more involved. And I stepped up to the plate. We didn't have many members in Northern California. I think it was slim pickings who was going to take that post as regional director, because we didn't have a lot of coverage. But I got involved, and again, as regional director, your position really is to promote and advance NTCA to the best of your ability, and that's what I did. As the road shows came through, I helped Michael Whistler and others, and that came through, and started to tout the good word about what NTCA can do for your business. And within a couple of years, we saw significant growth in Northern California of people who've similar sized business or even larger. I mean, one of the things was we really gained a lot of traction with the union companies, who also saw the value of being an NTCA contractor here in Northern California. And from then on, I mean, it's like I think the executive board then realized that hey, maybe this guy would be good as, president one day and executive board material. And so they nominated me, I accepted. And then, it's a process. So you go 2 years as second vice president, 2 years as vice president, 2 years as president, 2 years as chairman of the board, and then another 2 to 4 years as board advisor. So this thing can go on it's about a 12 to 14 year tenure that you need to allow time to attend these events, be involved. And pretty much as you move up that executive board, be the face of NTCA, so that fellow contractors out there can recognize who you are and come to you and ask questions, and look to you for guidance. Or it's like your responsibilities are writing that president's letter every month with Leslie in tile letter, and your commitment is 2 years to do that. And then also in the Artisan magazine to add value to that too, through articles and just like generally what's affecting you and your business, so you can pass it on.
Yeah. Well,
hopefully everyone's reading that, because I did a few months ago post something about like the supply chain, and it was like back in March, April, and me and Ron Nash talk a lot about that, and hopefully I've added value to people's business, so they've been able to secure materials and stuff ahead, so it's not going to hurt them too much.
No, absolutely, Martin. And the tile letter, for my audience, if you're not subscribed and receiving the tile letter, either digitally or physically or both, you're really missing out on a free publication. It's for years now. Most contractors I know will say that's their number one publication. It's small, it's to the point, but yet we have, the president of the NTCA, like Martin's saying, is monthly, giving us updates on, NTCA happenings or relevant news to tile contractors, like this supply issue, which, again, you said you were talking about 3-4 months ago, back in, summer or late summer. And I know I recorded something with Ron, and to this day, it's November 11th. To this day, if we open Facebook, you'll have somebody asking, where are the materials? What should I do? When
right.
if they were reading the letter and listening to the podcast, they would have known it's time to start thinking, ordering materials, saving them, doing whatever you have to. If you have a job in 3 months, you should have those materials in-house ready to go, because they might be hard to find in 3 months from now, as we're seeing. Now, there was a lot to unpack there, and I know we have a lot more to say, but let me just go through this a little bit slower here. So in about 1996, you started your business, and pretty soon after, which is normal, I've same thing. I got into some legal issues within my second or third year of being a contractor. Fairly normal to do, especially with you being from the UK, which we could probably have a whole nother conversation. And actually, I would like that, because we have some UK people in the group and listen to this. And from what I gather, it is a completely different animal. We probably don't want to go down that rabbit hole right now. But so you're learning.
I think there are some crossovers. Like I did actually comment on a post on Tile Money the other week about a person who was looking for information about how to get paid. And I gave him both perspectives, having worked in the UK and worked here. There are variances, but it works differently in the UK. But there's no reason why you can't adopt the practices in the US and implement them into your business in the UK. You can do that.
Sure.
But you don't want to be the only guy in your marketplace that's doing that, because it's going to scare people away. But if you get the message out and you get more people to buy into how you do business and how to get paid, then the customer will have nowhere else to go but to the guys who are the reputable guys who are implementing that and protecting the business.
Yeah, nice. And I can only imagine the relief you must have felt back then when you called the NTCA and you started talking to people who, they had been there, they had done this, they were going to point you in the right direction. Was that obviously, in my opinion, just hearing the story, that's what cemented your lifelong future and your history here of.
Well, that and writing a check for $36,000 really inspired me to join a trade association where I could find knowledge before rather than after.
Yeah.
And, that was a wake-up call for me. And it's like I tried to break the ice with people, because owning up to a mistake is not a bad thing.
Mm.
And as long as you learn from that mistake and don't keep making it, it's valuable, because that is a one-time, or should be a one-time event that you can learn from and not make that mistake again.
Yeah.
And I hate to hear the stories where guys don't own up to it or don't want to own it in any way and just try to punt it to someone else and not take responsibility. There's a lesson learned from making a mistake, and it's not a bad thing as long as you accept that you made the mistake and are able to rectify it. By doing that, you'll save your business.
Yeah.
By just punting it, you're going to ruin your business and your reputation. And eventually, when work does get tight, because we know at some point it will,
Yeah.
that is when you'll really feel the downside of punting it rather than owning it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. You know, 36,000 in 1996.
It's a lot of money.
I don't know what that equates to today, but something tells me it's closer to 100 or over 100,000.
Yeah.
Today. Yeah, that's a good chunk. So then you get asked to have this regional director position, and mind you, you're less than a decade here in the States, right?
Mm-hmm.
And certainly less than a decade in business. So you're out there grinding. I mean, you're, like you mentioned at the beginning, you're out there late nights, early mornings as a small contractor,
Mm-hmm.
and yet they're asking you to. This isn't a paid position, never has been, correct?
Yeah, correct.
So they're asking you to donate and volunteer your time and energy and money. What was it that made you think, yeah, that's a good idea?
Well, I mean, first of all, I like to give back. So, you know, I've been in the masonry and tile business since 1978.
Okay.
So I've pretty much learned a lot. And you know, back then it was more of a formal apprenticeship. I went to a college, Chesterfield College of Technology, which was a 3-year apprenticeship with an additional 4th year on that. That was both hands-on, but also book work too. So half the day would be spent in the workshop, half the day upstairs in a high-rise technical college, and it was good. They don't exist anymore, and it's a shame because I was sponsored by a company, and I was signed and a bound apprentice, so I couldn't leave them. So they pretty much, the first year was full-time at college, and then the next 3 years was day release, 1 day a week from 8 in the morning till 8 at night. But it gave me a good foundation to understand and be able to actually not only work in the trade, but also build a business, because part of the curriculum was also about the business and how the business works. So I had some insider information, of course, how then to go on from being an apprentice to a tradesman to building a business. So it gave me some tools that I could use later on in my career, which I'm grateful for. You know, I'm thankful that I had that opportunity. Unfortunately, those apprenticeship programs don't exist like they did back then today, because, you know, it was all sponsored by company money, and that dried up, and nobody saw the value in sending people to trade schools anymore, which is a shame. And that's why we have the labor shortage that we do right now, because that was the feeder, and it's just unfortunate. But from that, then, you know, it's like I've always been a hard worker. Even back in England, I'd always work Saturdays and Sundays, try to get ahead. You know, wanted some money in the bank, liked a nice car and stuff. So I'd always work hard. Even in England, I'd do side jobs just to make a little bit of extra cash. So when I came here with the same ethics, just to work hard, just to, you know, knuckle down and work hard, save some money and reward myself too. Yeah. And, you know, it worked out. I was able to build something that, you know, that has been very rewarding. I can look in the rearview mirror and look at it and look at where I started and what I have today. And I'm very thankful for that. I just think that joining the NTCA is the icing on the cake that helped me find people to give me information that I probably would not have known without the NTCA, without the help of the NTCA. It's like, for instance, at Jacksonville a couple of weeks ago, the one presentation by an attorney probably paid for my whole conference costs on the information that he gave and that I can use in my business to protect myself in contract writing, that I would not have known about had I not attended that presentation. Yeah. And you know, it's like some people have this deal where they think that the small companies don't gain anything from NTCA and it's only the large companies. I can tell you through experience, some of the stuff that starts off with the larger companies trickles down eventually to the smaller company. As those project managers leave the large builders in this country and they go and they may work for smaller residential, they bring those procedures with them and they start implementing those in their contracts. And so what the large companies see today, we may not see for 3 or 4 years, but eventually it does trickle down to us. And that's where being a small business owner, you can really be vulnerable if you don't understand the contract language or you don't know how to protect yourself with contract language. Gone are the days of the handshake. They don't exist anymore. And anybody who is still doing business on a handshake is really leaving themselves vulnerable and really need to stop doing that because that's not going to work in today's society.
Yeah, the guys who are doing handshakes and you know, I agree with you, Martin. I agree with you. I think it's a mentality, you know, but it doesn't lead to growth. I mean, how are you going to grow? How are you going to add employees? How are you going to add, you know, a bunch of jobs? It's more of, I'm going to work today on a handshake and, you know, I'm just going to basically live for today, which I can't knock somebody if that's their genuine attitude. But understand that that's what it is. You're basically winging it, living for today, in my opinion. And if that's what you want, understand I'm not judging you, and I don't think Martin is either. But if you know the whole idea with tile money and the NTCA is to build profitable, sustainable businesses. So in my opinion, that at some point means employees. It means, you know, setting a standard in your community as the most professional, you know, one of the most professionals, if not the leading company, the go-to company for tile contractor work. Certainly, in my opinion, that, you know, I am biased. I think contractors should have contracts.
Well, I always think that people are always looking for your weaknesses and vulnerabilities. And if you give them an opportunity, it may be good today, but that one person you're doing business with on a handshake may at some point, what happens if a job goes bad? Or he's a general contractor and he gets in dispute with the owner and can no longer pay you for services provided. The attorneys are going to look for your weaknesses and vulnerabilities, and they're going to tap into those of a reason why they shouldn't pay you. And you never, in this day and age, you never want to leave yourself weak or vulnerable to somebody taking advantage of a compromised position that you put yourself in. And you know, it's like it was difficult for me too in putting processes and procedures in place with contracts because some of my builders didn't want to do that. They felt like, well, you know, it's like, why are you doing this? We've done business on a handshake for many years, and now all of a sudden you're putting a contract in front of my face, and it's like, this is how it has to be from this day on. And some of them, you know, we lost, but others looked at it as being also a position of strength because they felt protected too by having a contract. Everyone knew what they were signing up for. There were no, you know, like nothing hidden anywhere. We were fully on board with what my part of the job was because it was right there in the contract. And you know, from that day on, it's worked really well for me having contracts and processes and procedures to make sure that I'm protected just as much as protecting my general contractor too, with lien releases, pre-liens, etc. Protects everyone and protects the fact that you need to get paid after your services rendered is completed. And so I don't have a problem with contract writing, to be quite honest. And I have the template on my computer. It's quite easy. I just fill in the blanks and send it off. In fact, my liens I do from my phone. CSLB here in California have actually all the paperwork online. You can download as a fillable form, and then you can just send it from your phone. So it's real easy for me. If I have a contractor call up and say, hey, we need that lien release today to get you paid, I can just do it from my phone and send it in 2 minutes. It's a no-brainer.
Yeah, that's true. And what I love is, you know, for the last, what are we talking here? You know, close to 30 years, I guess, since the mid 90s, late 90s to today.
Yeah.
You've been benefiting and learning by being associated and showing up to these events that the
I
NTCA has.
still am, Luke. It's
And
not,
you still are. Three weeks ago at TSP, you learned something new, and you said,
right.
that paid for my whole trip. That was worth it. That one class, that one presentation.
The learning never stops.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, even whether it be on the installation side or whether it be on the business side, you know, because as a tile contractor, I'm both, right? And I have an installation motivation and also have a business motivation to make it work and make my business profitable. And you know, even talking to some of the manufacturers with new products and stuff gives me an edge over everyone else. I get to talk to Ron Nash, who will tell me, hey, and you know, I asked him, it's like, how bad is it? And it's like, hey, it's going to get bad. It's going to get worse before it gets better. Mm-hmm. And I said I've been telling people, it's like, hey, as a small contractor, maybe you don't have the funds to buy a couple of pallets of a backer board or anything, but try to team up with some of your friends and have a buying group of maybe 4 or 5 contractors where you can buy a couple of pallets and have it stored in one of your local tile distributors and pick from it. And just do that. Just try to protect yourself with the supply chain issue ahead of time so that you're not caught on that job and you can't start because you don't have the materials to start. Like today, we had to pick up. I've been to 5 different distributors this morning trying to find grout, and every one of them does not have the grout that we want. I found one store that I got the last 2 boxes, but that's today's world. It's like you may go to your local distributor and they may say, sorry, we don't have it this week. It's going to be a couple of weeks before we get it. And so as much as you can do to prepare right now for the next 6 months or more is advantageous to your business.
Yeah. That's solid advice.
Again, that's like information that I get from these NTCA events from Total Solutions Plus that normally you'd be in the dark and you wouldn't know about it till it reared its ugly head. And then all of a sudden you can't go to work today because you don't have the materials to perform anything.
Yeah. Well, what I've noticed, you know, in the few years I've been showing up and attending, you know, the board meetings and the events in general, is the unity is there. The brotherhood, the friendship is there. It's very real. And, you know, why wouldn't you want to put yourself in a room of some of the nation's top contractors, most successful, most experienced? You know, some of these gentlemen and women have not only sometimes decades themselves, but they have, you know, sometimes in some cases 100 years of experience behind them. You know, as they're in, you know, like Christopher Walker and that gang over there. You know, that group of people. So it's
a lot of times, you know, we get asked, why is it a bunch of old guys? Honestly, I didn't start old. I was 45 when I got into this. Next year. I mean, just the track that you have to go through to get where you need to get to be president turns you from a young guy into an old guy just because it takes so long. And it's a proving ground too. It's to make sure that the guy who is the face of NTCA is the right person, because you are in front and you are the face of NTCA. And, you know, we've got a lot of manufacturer sponsors and stuff. We need to be professional in our appearance and the way that we present ourselves. And we have to communicate in a manner that holds that standard high, because you are the standard bearer for the NTCA.
That makes sense. And you know, we're all going to get old. The time's going to go by anyways.
Too fast. I mean, it goes by too fast, honestly. Well, that's true. But what I'm saying is, if this is your career and this is your lifelong trajectory of, I'm going to be a contractor, I want to be a successful business owner, this is certainly a path that will accelerate and strengthen your business and help you not to have so many pain points. And frankly, showing up to places like Total Solutions Plus, I mean, in 2019, it was in Nashville at the Madonna Inn, gorgeous place. Some people take their families and make a business and pleasure trip out of it. I highly suggest that. You know, this year's in Jacksonville on the water. A lot of people they went and checked out the ocean. They went and checked out the I want to say the jungle, but that's not right. You know, the swampland here in Florida, and they they get to experience things. And next year's I think next year's in Southern California. Is that called Palm Springs?
Palm Springs. That's a beautiful place.
Beautiful. Great resort. We've held it there. Actually, that is a canceled event that the hotel let us keep the reservation there and just transferred it over to 2022 instead of 2020. And so we've been there before. It's a great resort. It's a great place to be, to meet everyone, and just meet industry icons who have a lot to offer. Again, it depends where you are and what you want from this industry. Yeah. If you're quite happy just being that guy who's driving around like I was with a bucket and saw on the back of your pickup truck, that's fine. I'm not going to knock you for that. That fits for some people. For me, I just wanted to grow my business into something more sustainable than that, because I realized over the long term I could not do that. I could not be on my hands and knees. I couldn't be installing tile. What am I going to do at that point? Unless I think about it early and build something that's sustainable, I'm going to be in trouble moving forward when I can't get out of bed today because my back hurts or my knees hurt. Mm-hmm. And so it was really important to me to have something more sustainable than just that. And, I've not grown my company into like an empire, but I've grown it into something that I feel comfortable with, that the employees I have are easily managed and they're very loyal. And I'm very grateful to them for that. And I feel like we've gotten to a place where we are looked upon as a reputable company who's very ethical and does extremely high quality work. And so, like the long-term plan is, obviously, as Gabriel has been my right-hand man, he hopefully will take over the company at some point in the not too far future, and he will reap the rewards of his hard work too, so I can pass it on.
Nice. Yeah. That's great. That's the way it has to be. That's the way it should be. Yeah. And by the way, I know you mentioned, and we kind of joked, and I feel it. I was in the technical committee and the board meeting of the NTCA, or the annual meeting, and you're right. There's a lot of gray hair. There's a lot of us bald-headed, men and older, men and women who are, But the nice thing is, honestly, I really feel like this was my second Total Solutions Plus. I really feel like there was a lot more youth at this one than Nashville. And I see a trend that way. So to all you young contractors out there, don't be afraid. Don't think you're not gonna have a peer your age, because we have some incredible young people. It comes to mind just because I was looking at it earlier today, is Ivan down here in Miami Floors. He's really advancing and doing phenomenal business. He's very active on social. If
Ivan's listening to this, though, give me a call, because I keep giving him my card and telling him to call me, and he's not once called me. Ivan, please call me. 415-548-0483.
All right. We'll try to prompt him. I'm trying to get him on the podcast too. He's a busy man. He's a family man, and he's got a booming business. Yeah. He's got a lot of energy, though. He does, and he's doing some really cool things. And I encourage, young people to look to people like Ivan and Anthony Moses and
Katie Sue. I mean,
Sue has been
talking with Katie Sue. What a wonderful person.
Yeah.
It's like, and I love meeting people like that, because that energizes me. It's like, I like talking to the older guys too, but listening to younger people, what their problems are, what their experiences are, and also how they view NTCA. What is it that they can get from NTCA? And it's really exciting to see this new batch of youth come through NTCA. And most of these are starting where I started, right? And it's like, well, how do I get from here to here? And it's like, well, I went through the same. Don't forget, it's been 15 years for me. I was in my mid-40s, and now I'm close to 60. So, that's how long it takes. And just think, are you willing to put in the time and be involved like that over the next 15 years? But I can tell you, for me, it's given me a lot of personal growth, but it's also given me business growth too, that's helped me make better decisions along the way. And even if I got to that crossroads and I wasn't quite sure whether to turn left or right or move straight forward, at least I had somebody to talk to and run it by them to find out whether it was the right decision or if they'd experienced it themselves. And I think that's the real true value of NTCA, as well as the training and education part too, which has enabled me to also up my game with the CTI, with the ACT, and having regional trainings and stuff that I have my guys always attend, because it makes them feel good too, that I'm actually investing in them too, and that they're able to benefit from these regional events. So there's a lot of value there that NTCA has to offer if you seek it out. You've got to seek it out. It's not going to come and knocking on your door. You've got to actually apply yourself and involve yourself in the inner workings of NTCA. Mm-hmm. And it's so great to see Jane Calloway and to see Eric Bloomer and to see Anthony Moses as new regional directors for NTCA. It's really exciting to see new people being involved and getting involved with NTCA. Yeah. And potentially moving up the ladder. I mean, that is really, you start off as an ambassador. When I got involved, the ambassador program didn't exist back then. Mm-hmm. And so that was something that we thought would be advantageous, to at least give people a test and try the water out to see if it was for them or if it's not. We don't have any hard feelings if it's not for you, but at least they come in and they try. And it's like, the next step after that then is, like with the proving ground, is then the regional director, and then from the regional director.
Hold on. Let's pause 1 second. I want to talk about the titles and what they mean, and the timelines and what that would look like. You said something that caught my ear and caught my attention a minute ago. You said, you were talking to Katie Sue and other young people and asking them, how do you view the NTCA and what is your business like today? Because I think it is a valid point here to mention, from the 90s to today, to the 2021, it's a completely different landscape out there for new contractors. First of all, we talked about a great thing that you had when you were, I imagine, 18, 19, 20, was the schooling that taught you not only your trade, but it also taught you kind of the business, or gave you at least an introductory to business. Mm-hmm. So you weren't just, on both fronts you had training, which was beautiful. Yeah. Unfortunately, it sounds like, I know in the United States, all that kind of stuff has gone by the wayside pretty much, and it sounds like the same for the United Kingdom. What challenges are unique to contractors today that are kind of, making you think like, okay, we need to adjust, or what kind of feedback are you getting from these young contractors? And as the president of the NTCA, what does that kind of spur you to kind of move you to do or think about for, I don't know if I'm asking this the right way, but, I think it's, I guess I just want to thank you for asking that question. That's such a valid question and an important question to continue asking, because somebody in your position could lose touch with somebody who's in their mid 20s or even 30s who has a decade or less as a new contractor. So,
for sure. And I feel that's why it's important to reach out and to understand, especially with social media, because I believe I use social media different than the people in the 30s. It's not, even though we're both probably viewing things, we use it differently. And there's some nuances there that how we use and how we gather information are differently, being an older person as opposed to a younger person who sees it completely different. But it's being able to understand what they're looking for. Is it the training and education that's important to them? And the answer to that is yes. I see a lot of people who join NTCA purely looking for the training and education, how to develop something that I had that is no longer available, that can promote them and help them feel more comfortable, rather than doing an install and doing it on the fly without knowing how do they get that information, and how are they able to make that a successful install that they can get paid from without having the foundation that I had moving forward. And I think training and education and the outlets that NTCA provide through the workshops and regional training gives them the ability to train themselves with excellent trainers who are very knowledgeable, and give them the confidence moving forward. And there's no other place out there in the US that can provide that training and education like NTCA.
Yeah. I love it. I think that's it. I think that is one of the biggest pain points we have in 2021 moving forward, is a lack of training and education, and a lack of resources for new contractors to utilize. The nice thing is when I got started and started with tile money and started paying attention, I was one of those guys who never paid attention, which is kind of funny, because now I'm definitely, an advocate of the NTCA, because now I'm getting to see and I'm getting to kind of experience what my business would have looked like had I gotten involved, at year 1 or year 2 as a licensed contractor, because I felt like I was all alone when I didn't need to for all those years. And I was active on what I'll call social media, which back then was the John Bridge forums.
Right?
I wasn't active. I was reading. I was too shy to say anything. I know that's hard to believe, but I was too shy to ask a question even. But I was consuming a lot of information, and a lot of the people like Brad Denny, I used to read, and Trask and Dirk.
Trask, right, Dirk,
and a bunch, they're still active on the forums. They're still active within the NTCA. So, and what I wanted to say is, like, a few years ago, I remember I want to say there's like about 50, less than 100 for sure, but I think between around 50 training events that the NTCA was holding. Does that sound about right?
Yeah, 50 to 60. Yeah.
Next year, how many are you going to have?
I think there's like 72 or so next year, plus the regional workshops.
So we're going to be up over, I think it's going to be 150 from what I remember combined. There's 2 different styles of training, but nonetheless, it's hands-on kind of classroom style education. So
and we've got Floor and Decor who have been very receptive to our training programs and are a big sponsor of our workshops, who are really wanting to get more involved with NTCA, and we actually see the value of that too, because the installers that tend to go to Floor and Decor, we find, are much younger, probably not familiar with NTCA. And so it's a good introduction. They hold workshops where they invite contractors. Sometimes the contractors who are doing work with them, who they refer out, that they ask to come. And so you've got an audience that really Floor and Decor have picked to be there. And so they are very open-minded and really seeing the value of what NTCA has to offer. And of course, it helps Floor and Decor out, because now they're getting people trained on standards and methods and getting introduced to the handbooks and the reference manual and ANSI that they probably don't even have in the toolkit. Now they have access to it. At least they know it exists.
Yeah.
So, it is, because, I'm seeing that maybe larger flooring contractors who go to Floor and Decor not only do tile, but maybe wood and carpet or wood and other art surfaces too, and now getting more involved in tile, and maybe their resources are not as hefty as they'd like to be. So going to a workshop then introduces them not only to NTCA, but all the books and reference manuals that are available to them, so they can better the business.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. No, I'm ecstatic to see it, because these regional training events and the events that NTCA is doing out there in the field are very popular. There's a demand for them, and you've recently hired more trainers, and it's just it's great to see. And it's great to see Floor and Decor, working with it. It opens the line of communication between the distributor, the tile contractor. It's beautiful.
Our industry over the last 10 years has moved at light speeds with introduction of new materials, new methods.
Yeah.
The whole industry has changed. And, I was an old mud set guy. I'd float everything, always thought it was the best way to go. And then realized, maybe it's not the best way to go. Maybe there are systems out there that can offer better warranties. Maybe because we do a lot of high-rise, maybe I don't need to wear my guys out taking 100 bags of deck mud up 30 floors. Maybe I can swap that out and work smarter rather than harder. Yeah. And actually give a product that has a better warranty than a sack of sand and cement, and makes the customer feel good about it too, especially when they walk in there and they see it all prepped. And, our prep work is like, I always liked Steve Jobs with his iPhone. He wanted it to look as good on the inside, although no one ever saw it, than the outside. Wow. And it's like, so I started thinking about how he viewed things and viewing things in a similar way. I want my shower installs to look as good on the backside as they do on the front side, because I know that's the most important part of the assembly. Mm-hmm. And so if I don't get that waterproofing right, and it doesn't look good, or it doesn't function right, I've failed on the tile. The tile can look like the best tile in town, but if I failed on the waterproofing, then the whole job's coming out anyway, and it don't matter what it looks like on the outside, because I failed. And so we started to take that approach. And I love it when I go in a job site and I actually see the prep work. And I always say someone can take a shower without tile being on the wall, and I'm comfortable with that because it's going to hold water. It's not going to leak anywhere.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so it's just having that pride in work rather than it be a hack job and it looked like, bits of everything all stuck together and no method, that you can actually walk in there and see a job prepped per textbook. It looks like a textbook prep job. It looks fantastic. It gives me a lot of satisfaction when I look at that, and it's like, wow, the owners must feel good about that too, because it looks really great.
Yeah.
And so, just that way of switching gear, talking to the manufacturers at these events, understanding their systems, understanding the warranties they give with their systems, just helps and helps me in my business too.
Mm-hmm. And yet you've retained your knowledge of the old world mud floating for when appropriate, for the right
well,
job.
In California, as you know, being here yourself for some time, on the floors, we typically don't have we don't have any other way but to float the floors because the homes have just moved around so much with the earthquake, with the seismic activity, that most of our floors tend to be floated. And all our shower pans today are pretty much all floated. We still do water in, water out systems, but our walls are not. So, we typically use a foam board, or we'll use, a den shield type product on the walls. And then always waterproofed, fully waterproofed. I just went by today to a job and they were using 8+9 on the steam shower, and it looked fantastic. Just looked like a fantastic assembly, ready for tile ready. It just looks good.
Yeah. Waterproof, ready before tile.
Yeah.
I love it. So now let's get into the terminology, because we have several floating around here. We have, so you would start with ambassador, right?
Yes.
And that, what does that look like? Is that a commitment, a 1-year thing, or a 2-year?
A 2-year commitment as an ambassador. I think I'm still on the list as an ambassador, even though president. So, my role is still to be and promote NTCA.
Yeah.
And I try to get to all the regional events and go and promote NTCA. I've always done that from being a regional director. That's what I feel was my real big commitment to NTCA, is to make sure, even though I'd drive down to San Jose, I'd go over to San Leandro, I'd go over to Fairfield, I'd attend these events representing NTCA, trying to promote and gain membership through these workshops, and help Roderick used to come through. I'd help Rod, I'd help Michael Whistler, and now I help Randy, and just help him and be his side guy. So while he's presenting, I can talk to guys, get a feel, see if they know what NTCA is, see if it's going to work for them, see if it's something that they're interested in.
Yeah.
And so as an ambassador, you would start off at that, you'd start off at that level. And the regional director is going to be very similar, but, is to promote and to have people understand NTCA better.
Okay. And then after regional director, it would be board advisor. No, not board advisor.
No. Regional director. Then it's a big pot to pick from, right? So you're looking at regional directors throughout the United States. So then what you want to do is try to identify who you feel would be executive board material, who could represent then NTCA at a different level, going more into the how you present yourself, how you talk, because there's some public speaking involved. You're gonna have to get up on the podium. It's like it's just like that. You're looking for somebody who represents NTCA in the best possible way, and somebody who's committed also to the next 12 years of going through the executive board to board advisor. And so you want to make sure that you're picking the right person, because you're not voted in after that. Once you're voted in as second vice president, then you're going to go through the whole first vice president, president, chairman, board advisor. So we want to make sure we got the right person that is going to commit to that length of time. It's a big commitment. I mean, you don't know where you're going to be at the end, right? You start off, at second vice president, and then it's like it's like a marathon. You've got to make sure that guy can run a marathon and is not just in it for the short term, because worst thing to happen would be at year 2, as they move up, first vice president, then they're not committed to the presidency, and now all of a sudden you got to move everyone up in place. Okay. So a lot of thought goes into it, a lot of discussion with the executive board, and we throw it around. We go through names, and we try to find out the best person who would represent NTCA moving forward, and eventually to president.
How many people sit on that executive board?
Well, we've got the second vice president, which is right now Rod Owen. Okay. We've got first vice president, which is Sam Bruce, myself, president, and then we've got Chris Walker as chairman. And then we've got board advisors like John Cox is on there, Dan Welch, James Wolfall. We've got a few board advisors on there too.
So maybe a dozen or so.
Yeah. Okay. And then we've got Bart, of course, as executive officer right there in that meeting too.
Okay. Very, very interesting and very cool. I love hearing about this and learning about this. And I hope
it's difficult, Luke, for people to understand, and maybe they misunderstand how it works. And I've been looking at some posts on Facebook where I think there's some confusion of how it happens, and how people do get in those positions. It's not. You've got to dig a little deeper. And again, if you need to reach out to me and call me to get some clarification on how that works, please do. Because, we do have a formula that works. It is the same formula that, don't forget, we celebrate 75 years next year of a trade association, which is remarkable. And we're going to have some events to actually celebrate that too. And so it's not like this association is just like been around for a few years. It's been around for 75 years. Yeah. And it's going to be around. It's going to be around forever. I mean, it really is something that the industry needs. And there's certainly a need for a trade association like NTCA in the tile contracting business for sure.
Well, the dirty truth of the matter is, it does need to be around, and I hope it is around forever, because you look at some of these comments, and I'm gonna put myself out there too. A lot of these comments, at the end of the day, they said, "Well, I don't want to do it," and people, with Tile Money, I find us a great fit, the NTCA and Tile Money, because I'm doing this over here on social media and reaching, people in a different way and talking about their business. And with the NTCA, I mean, I can't, I don't think anybody would be able to do, catch up to the NTCA and all the things that the NTCA has accomplished in 75 years. I mean, you take, I was thinking about this because those posts, they're thought provoking, and and that's what I appreciate about a respectful discussion, a professional, even a debate, professional way can be very beneficial to an organization and a person and a company. You think about taking away those 75 years of history. Where does that leave us? Right.
And look at the goodness that's been done about educating and training people. And don't forget that for many years now, NTCA has been the driving force of CTEF also. So without the influence of NTCA into CTF, where would CTF be today? And I think that people don't always understand that too. They don't look at CTF being part of NTCA. I mean, they're separate entities, but without Bart Bettiger being before Brad Denny being the executive director also of CTF and moving it forward and advancing it, and actually getting Brad Denny to be the next executive director of CTF, and all the hard work that Scott Carruthers has done too. But the two go together, and I don't think that people always recognize that fact is the two go together. The two complement each other. And so, it's like CTI is obviously for the installer, and NTCA is for the contractor, for the business side. But the two do come together and they complement each other in a very beneficial way. And I think that when Brad really gets, into this, that we're going to see some great things come out of CTEF and the CTI and maybe the ACT as he starts developing programs, because we know there's an appetite out there for installers who've got the CTI and they want something more. Mm-hmm. They want further education, and that's what we hope we can deliver to the installers out there who are looking for more than just being a CTI. hopefully there's enough room on their arms where they can put more tattoos on and you know, like, and promote that, because I think that's great. When somebody's that proud of what they've accomplished, that they put it on their arm, that's great. What more could you ask for from somebody who's participated in something that is willing to actually tell the world that they've done it? I mean, that is fantastic, and I think that's elevated also the tile installation community by having something, because previously they had nothing. Now they have something that's tangible that they can use to promote themselves and let people know why they should be used to do that job, because they've demonstrated that they can. I mean, not to say that there are many installers out there who are not CTI, we know that, but it's just like, how does that person know that you are the right person? I mean, if there's two people in a room, one has done the CTI and one hasn't, kudos to the guy who has, because he should be getting the job, because at least he can prove to that person who's wanting to hire someone he's done something for the betterment of his career and for the betterment of the industry. And he's participating in the industry. I mean, when I take my car in for service, I want to know that the guy's actually trained on the car that he's working on, and he's not like a 1940s mechanic, and that he can actually work on a 2021 car, and he is familiar with the computer systems and everything in it. Because otherwise, I'm going to have a whole bunch of hurt, because he's not going to know how to fix it. And that's the way I look at it with CTI. It's giving someone the knowledge, and it's also giving them the opportunity to show that they're involved in the business they work in, that they wanting to better themselves, that they've not just learned from someone they work next to for 10 years. Because how good was the guy who you were learning from for 10 years? You may have thought he was the best guy until you get in trouble and then find out he led you down the path of making mistakes, because, you know, he learned from somebody who made mistakes.
Yeah.
So I think it's really important. And, you know, it's like I see those comments too that come up about it's an outdated test. It's like, when do we use 4 1/4 anymore and stuff? The test is a well-developed test that is about time management. It's about layout. It's about skill. It's many things that you couldn't do if you just used a 24 by 12 tile. You couldn't do it. You couldn't. It would become too easy if you tried to do it that way. The test itself is a very good test, and it's not based on materials we use rather than time management, skill set, and layout. And so usually it's sour grapes when people complain about it because they didn't pass. But I would say take it as a learning opportunity. Don't look at it as anything more than a learning opportunity. Shake yourself, come back, and pass it next time, because you'll have a lot. If you take that attitude, you'll gain a lot more from it, rather than just having sour grapes and saying it's not for me. Why are we using 4 1/4? Yeah. So hopefully people can learn from it, and they can take it again and then pass and feel good about it.
You know, circle back to education. Absolutely. That's the biggest missing component. And I'll use Randall Johnson, a young man who just passed CTI in August at MUD event of this year. And I was there and I interviewed him briefly, you know, and what he said in the interview was, hey, I've never been to college. I got introduced to tile, as a young man. In other words, he wasn't brought up through, like, it wasn't his father, or it wasn't a family business.
Right.
And so he said, when I found out about the CTI, I realized and recognized that this was my opportunity to differentiate myself. This is my college. This is my trade college, my piece of paper that says I am qualified. I have, advanced myself and learned as much as possible. And then the same young man, Randall Johnson, wrote a post inside Tile Money this week, today or yesterday, and he said, "Thank you, Tile Money, because of this program, I've been able to solidify my business. I've raised my prices. I've learned to use, contracts." And he had all these great things to say. And so again, circling back to that, Tile Money, CTEF, NTCA, they're all working hand in hand to strengthen the contractor in slightly different ways, but the end result is a stronger contractor.
They all complement each other. Yeah. And you'd have to ask Randall, where would he be today had he not had that opportunity to prove himself and to find something like Tile Money that helped him understand his real value, his true value. rather than it being driven by someone who thinks they can get away with paying him less. Now he knows his true value, and he should never devalue his true value. I mean, he's got to hold tight, and he will be a successful man once he understands that he can hold tight to his true value. And you don't need every job in town. I mean, you just don't need that. Some jobs, and the best job you get sometimes is the one you didn't. And you just need to walk away from those when you feel like you're being pushed into a corner where you're not going to make money. I mean, last thing you want to do is feel guilty as a business person about making money. That should never be a thought that you have. But unfortunately, I think we are felt to feel that way, that it's a bad thing to make money. It's like, I mean, I'm going to work for someone. If I can't be profitable and make money, I'm going to close shop and just go and work for someone.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, might as well. And to be honest, I mean, if you have, I encourage guys and girls, it's like, if you think you might want to be an employee, here we are in November 2021. There's never been a better time to find a well-paying job, and you have the ammunition, I'll just say, to negotiate a solid, a pay, a solid position for yourself in the best of companies, because guess what? Everybody's hiring.
Right.
So,
don't forget too, even if you do that, a lot of these companies like your David Allen's and stuff, there's growth within that company then to move through the company. And, it's like, again, working for yourself and being a business owner is not for everyone. Sometimes you're better off if your focus is like on being a mechanic and perfecting your trade. Maybe it is more advantageous to go out and work for someone who recognizes that and rewards you accordingly. And then you don't have to deal with the business aspect. The business side is not for everyone. And that takes, again, a different skill set from being a good mechanic. And it's sometimes very difficult to put those two together. Your good mechanic is not always necessarily a good business person and making the best business decisions.
It's like everything, I think, Martin, is you start practicing it. They say doctors are practicing, right? So you start doing the thing. So with the mechanics of it all, the installation, the grouting, it takes hours. I mean, isn't it the 10,000 hour rule before you actually, get really good or perfect the thing, or get to the point where you're a journeyman or whatever. But it's the business. Oftentimes you can be a good business owner. You just, every single week or every single day, the rule of thumb that I would recommend is 20% of your time. If you're going to be if you're a contractor who's still installing tile, you need to at least 8 hours, 20% of a 40-hour work week, right? 8 hours for business. Now, whether you do that an hour and a half or, just under 2 hours a day, or you just dedicate one day, a Saturday or a Friday, whatever it be, you can, if this is your goal and you're just struggling with the business end, you can get a hold of it. You can, once you get closer and closer to those 10,000 hours, but it has to start somewhere. You've got to start practicing being a business owner, and that's the bottom line.
That's I struggled with that too. It's stepping away from the business because you're so emotionally attached to it. And you think that nobody else could do it like yourself. And that's, you've got to get rid of that thought, because that's not true. But letting go and starting to delegate responsibilities is probably the toughest decision I had to make. And I slowly did it over a period of time, but it didn't come easy either for me. But I realized that I needed to do it for my company to be sustainable. I needed to step away from the install and become a business owner and work at the business rather than at the installs. And now I realize I'm probably losing money actually at the end of the day doing installs. And it's like, I mean, running the business should be more profitable than installing the tile. And it's like delegating responsibility and making sure that you are making money, and how to make that happen. Would probably need at least a day in the office, like a Friday or something, a day a week, to take yourself out the field to begin with, and then maybe increase that as you start to grow your business and are able to delegate responsibility.
Absolutely. I think I think if there's anybody listening to this who has 5 or 6 employees and is still working 5 days a week, 6 days a week, physically installing tile or running around, it's really time to start considering, you got to start slowly, 2 days, maybe 1 day a week in the office, then 2, then 3. And you've really got to think about your path to get off your knees and off the tools. Otherwise I've seen it. I've seen it a bunch of times, time and time again. You're going to be stuck at that 5-6 person employee, and you're never going to break that cycle. You're never going to get past that. It's going to be very, very, very difficult, because it's a vicious cycle. And look at what can happen. Martin Brookes, he did it. He's got 8 employees. That's not a lot of employees. Do you live in no, you live just north of San Francisco, right?
Mill Valley, yeah, just
across the bridge.
Yep.
Still very expensive area.
Mm-hmm.
He comes.
Last time I looked, it's like $1,200 a foot right now for a home. So
wow,
average home area. Homes come on the market for like 2.3, 2.4 for like 2,000 square feet, and they're gone within a day. They sold immediately.
Wow.
The place, it's like unbelievable. Fortunately, I've lived there since '93, so I got in when it was more affordable. But again, still a very expensive. Cost of living is very high. It's like wage increases are often. It's like it's keeping that balance of keeping your employees happy, making them feel like they're appreciated, and also turning a profit too.
Once again, that's not an easy feat. That's not an easy feat to have
focused. You have to be focused to do that.
Yeah.
It's like, right now we're over $5 a gallon for gas. So, we've got 3 trucks on the road every day. And so all of a sudden, my fuel costs are starting to rise. And so, that has to be baked into the pie.
Yeah.
I'm looking and evaluating job costs each week. And, it's like I'm having to increase one contractor called me up. He's like, hey, your costs have gone up. And it's like, you not been to the supermarket today? Or you not filled your truck with gas? There's a reason why it's going up. It's not all my money. Some of that money's going to other places too. It's not all coming in my pocket.
Right.
Cost of doing business. And to be quite honest, if you're not looking at it that way too, you're doing yourself a disservice.
Yeah.
So you may want to look at your prices too and increase them according to, what the markets are. And, it's like sometimes you have to have that conversation. You don't want to price yourself out of the market too. You want to be fair. You want to make sure that the increases make sense when you get challenged on what those increases are. Don't just come up with a number and stick it on there. Mm-hmm. Especially if the contractor's got data from how you've been bidding in the past. You want to be able to substantiate why you're doing an increase and be able to let him know why and where it's going. Just don't come up with a number and stick it on there, because that could ruin a relationship. So nobody likes to feel like they're being gouged, but a fair price increase based on what current costs are is not, it's not out of the ordinary to ask for. Everyone should be asking for that right now.
Yeah, I 100% agree. I made a post in one of the groups, I showed the gas prices, and I said, guess what? All this means is I've got to raise my prices. All this means is that it's got to be passed on. You can either bitch about it and complain about it and get yourself in a state of, depression almost, thinking about these types of things, or you can just say, that's the world I live in. Let's reflect this in my pricing moving forward and carry on. It's not, it's out of my hands, but as a business owner,
California next year requires that any business over 5 employees or more has to provide either a 401k or CalSavers. So every business, even that little coffee cart on the corner, if they have more than 5 employees, now they've got to provide a retirement fund for their employees.
Wow.
Well, you've got to start thinking now, because that comes in effect in June of next year, but you're going to have to do it. The fines are quite hefty if you don't follow that, and they will audit you to make sure that you are paying it. So you will get caught if you don't do it. And getting around that whole thing with like 1099 labor is not going to work either, because that is a recipe for disaster too. But you are going to have to pass that cost on and bake it into the pie and start adding that on now, sooner rather than later, so that you can protect yourself from that extra cost, extra burden that there's going to be another line item when you run payroll.
Well, and thank you for bringing this up. And I know you, from time to time, you share things like this, if not the same exact article, inside the California Tile Contractors Group. I forget what it's called, but so I appreciate that. Again, I'm not just blowing smoke here. You're a shining example, because my audience is mostly small contractors. I think a lot of them, when they think of the NTCA, they think of large contractors, almost untouchable, right? Like, like 100
Most
employees.
of our members, Luke, are small contractors,
Yeah.
like myself, if
Yeah.
not smaller. I mean, most of our members are actually small. Obviously, we have some larger companies
Sure.
too,
Sure.
but they're a very small percentage of what the smaller contractor. I think on our membership, I would be looked upon with most of them as a larger contractor at eight employees, because they're all like, two or three, or even just sole proprietors, just single guys. So and it's like I actually applaud them for being part of NTCA and involving themselves even as a small company. And like Greg Michaels is one there in Florida.
Yep.
I mean, Greg is just Greg now. I think he had someone else, and now he's just by himself. And he's often posting on social media about how he values from it as just one guy.
Yeah.
And he does. He involves himself. He's involved himself for years. He attends the
He's
events.
A 5-star contractor.
5-star contractor, just a great guy who sees the real value in being part of NTCA.
Yeah. Well, there's two paths, and certainly the one you chose, you can't even count the hours, you can't even count the days, you can't even count the weeks of volunteering you've done for the NTCA. But what you can say and what you can count is your success. Here right. You are.
The personal growth and the business growth, I couldn't have got. I mean, I don't even look at that. I don't really care about how many hours I've volunteered, because for me, it's been very rewarding. I mean, that's just me. That's what I got from it.
Yeah.
But I applied myself. It's something that I wanted to do, that I saw the value in both personal and business growth that I could get from it, and gave me a network and a group of people that were like-minded, that I could talk with, and we all understood each other's concerns, and we understand each other's successes too, that we can all share in. Mm-hmm. And it's like, what could be better than that? It's been very rewarding for me, and I'm proud to be president of NTCA. Another year, it's my term will be over next year, and then Sam Bruce will step in my boots. Mm-hmm. But it's like my first year, and it's been very rewarding for me.
Nice.
And it was great to get together in Florida. That's my first event as president, by the way, and it was very rewarding. It's like, it's just good for everyone to be back together in person. And I think in Vegas, we're putting together an ambassadors event, which will be cocktails and stuff, and just to get together and just to be able to understand those young people that are coming into NTCA, and have them understand, like hopefully we've tried to explain today, the inner workings of NTCA and how it works.
Yeah. No, I think we've shed some light. And if anybody wants to get a hold of Martin, he's always volunteering to talk to you as a contractor, and he really sincerely wants to assist young contractors or older, any contractor, any tiler who has a question about business or anything tile related. Get a hold of Martin.
Even in the UK too, if we've got listeners out there right now in the UK, reach out.
Okay.
More than willing to share my experiences, both sides of the pond. I mean, it's like almost 30 years since I worked in the UK, but it's like I have experiences back there too. So more than willing to share those with anyone out there.
Wonderful. Well, thank you for your leadership, Martin. And if anybody listening thinks that this kind of a life would pique their interest, show up to these events. You can sit in on a board meeting. You can sit in on, a technical meeting to get a taste of it. And I know there's a lot of geeks in the tile contractor world who would really appreciate and really kind of geek out, so to speak, on being on inside a technical committee and kind of seeing how the secret sauce is made, so to speak. It's really eye-opening. I mean, it really what it does for me is it makes me shut my mouth, because I feel like I'm 10 years old in that room. But it's pretty humbling, and it's rewarding, like you're saying. And
well, I think you've got to get involved and understand the inner workings. Maybe go to a couple of 3 meetings. And then what we find is, like, people are then able to open up as they feel like they're more confident in making a statement about something, where, first 1, 2, third meeting can be quite intimidating. But by the time the 4th meeting and on from there, you get to feel more confident about standing up and making a statement. And it's like I like that participation. I like to see someone new get up there. Like Joseph Matisse is a good example that gets up there and is able to make a statement, feel very confident about it. And so he should, because he has a lot to offer. Very smart young man who really is like the next generation of NTCA.
Yeah.
And, it's inspiring to see people like that. And, Anthony Moses, too, does some great podcasts himself, too. And, is motivated to be that next generation of NTCA. Like I say, it's like being older. It's hard to understand how the younger generation are going to evolve this into the next generation. But to be quite honest, it's up to you. You're going to be someday the guardians of this great association, and you're going to move it, and you're going to shape it, and you're going to move it forward like you want it to be. And you can only do that if you get involved. You're going to shape and influence how NTCA looks for future generations. And like I say, 75 years, it's not going away anytime soon. But get involved so you can make a difference, that you can show the willingness and do the volunteer time to make a difference in the tile world.
Yeah, and a perfect example, and I know we're going a little long, I'll wrap this up, but a perfect example, I'm glad you brought up Joseph Matisse, because he took something inside that technical committee. And if you're listening to this podcast or watching this YouTube, Joseph's will be up, because after Martin, I'm going to interview Joseph, and it's going to be a shorter one. We're going to do 15, 20 minutes, but I wanted to highlight this because it's so cool. He took a discussion that started and has been going on the internet in groups, and he took that discussion to the technical committee and presented it in a way, he articulated it in a way that now he's actually going to have a chance at voicing, the contractors who are voicing their opinion about this problem with mosaic, mesh backing being too thick at times. And I thought that was such a cool thing to watch this thing from the group. I watched it on social media, then I was in the technical committee, and I just thought that's brilliant. Exactly how it should work, and I'm glad to see it working like that.
And it's the same with the artisan group too. I mean,
True.
It's like the same thing. It's like watching this evolve, and watching them get involved is really energizing to see that level of energy and commitment. Is really astounding to see that. And it's like we need more of that. We just can't be dormant. We need more of that. We need more participation from the mechanic and from the installer standpoint. We are a trade association that of installers, so we need to promote that. You need to know that is our real goal. There is to help and support the installation community.
Absolutely. Well, Martin, I think this is a good spot to wrap it up, unless we missed anything.
No, it's good. Thanks, Luke.
Okay.
My pleasure. Enjoyable. Thank you.
All right, tile friends. Well, listen, I hope you enjoyed that conversation with Martin, and I hope you take him up on his generous offer to give him a call, shoot him a text, shoot him an email, a private message on social. He's active on Facebook. Bend his ear. Ask him, anything, any question you have on the business of tile or the NTCA. He's certainly a reasonable man, and he's willing to give of his time, and he's in a position to do so, and he's very generous with that. So give him a call. And again, I hope you enjoyed that. If you want to stay in touch with all things Tile Money, you can do so by signing up for our weekly email. It's a newsletter emailed on Thursdays. The link is in the show notes, or go to tilemoney.com to sign up. Stay positive out there, tile friends. You're in a luxury business. That's the beautiful thing, is tile is a luxury item, and it could be a very profitable business, as we've seen here with Martin, and a lot of you are doing very well. So keep up the good work, stay positive, and above all else, for goodness sake, please stay profitable out there, tile friends. All right, talk to you next week.